Hello. One person, early person. Ah, there you go. And I got alerted that I actually went live. That's excellent. Okay. So, early person left. Thanks, Bill. Okay. Alright. Now that we have 7 of you here, I was asked on Instagram, and I think that it's important to talk about because I know that so many of the people who follow me, yes, I'm glad you're here live with me. So many people who follow me do so because they found me from my hypothyroid video. And in that video, if you haven't seen it, I go through how I cured my hypothyroid on a vegan, especially in that case it was a raw vegan diet. And I want to talk about that more because, you know, as most of you probably know, I don't eat an exclusively raw food diet anymore. I definitely include plenty of raw and cooked whole plant foods in my diets, but when I first went vegan and when I was trying to cure the hypothyroid and the adrenal fatigue that I was dealing with, I did do that with a raw food diet. Looking back on it now, raw food diets, or that raw food diet that I chose to do, felt so good for my body. I ate a mostly fruit-based raw food diet, so it was like in the 80-10-10 style, bananas for a lot of meals per day. I was hypothyroid, so underactive thyroid function. And a lot of greens, a lot of fruits. I worked as a produce manager at an organic store in New Zealand, so I literally had access to probably the best produce on the face of the planet, and that made the raw food thing easy for me. Had I not had that job, and had I not been in that location and had the quality and quantity of food that had been available to me been different, I don't think I would have done the raw food diet, to be perfectly honest. Like, it just would have been too much. And it would have been too much stress added to my life, because when you're dealing with hypo or hyperthyroid or any other endocrine disorder, and they're all quite related, so it's very common to get someone who has like blood sugar dysregulation that's associated with like type 2 diabetes and the pancreas, and you find someone who has that with hypothyroid, with adrenal fatigue or adrenal overfunctioning. You find those people, and it's so difficult to pin down the exact cause of it. Like, it could be an issue with your pituitary gland, it could be hypothalamus. It's almost impossible to pin down and specifically diagnose exactly what's going on, okay? So when you get someone who's hypothyroid, most of the time that's not the only endocrine gland that's messing up, and whether or not that's going to be diagnosed is a whole other issue with the medical model that we subscribe to. And that's, like, you don't necessarily need to have it diagnosed to be able to fix it, with diet and lifestyle and such. But when I talk about hypothyroid and the adrenal fatigue that I dealt with, and I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, which often goes hand in hand with these other disorders. I was told that with my blood sugar dysregulation issues, I would probably become type 2 diabetic at some point in my life. Like, they're all so closely related, and that is why their treatments are very similar. And their treatments are very similar to virtually every other chronic disease that we're dealing with, which is sticking to a whole plant food diet as much as is practical and possible for you. For me, I felt like it was very, very important to be vegan, to not include any dairy products with their exogenous hormones, to not include any meat, which is saturated in adrenaline and stress hormones from when that animal was killed. And those foods are also full of things like, acidic animal protein, saturated fat, cholesterol, all sorts of stuff that's going to contribute to the body-wide dysbiosis that was causing my hypothyroid in the first place. So when I look back now and I think, was a raw food diet absolutely necessary for me to get better? I don't know. I can't tell you one way or the other, but I don't think it was. It's what I chose to do. It's what felt good for my body for a span of time, and then I definitely reached like the natural end of that time when it felt good, and then I kind of felt like I was starting to develop some potential mineral deficiencies and such. So I think it was very important for me to reincorporate other forms of plant foods into my diet, cooked and whole. But for the time period when I first went vegan, I did raw food and it felt great. I did really low salt, and that was okay. I felt okay, but I always had really strong salt cravings. And the more that I've learned about adrenal fatigue, the more I've kind of come to understand that I probably had those cravings so intensely because of the adrenal fatigue, because of my adrenal glands' inability to excrete enough of the hormones that control my sodium and potassium balance. And so even though I was like drinking tons of water, I wasn't really getting hydrated, and I always felt thirsty and dehydrated. And my insistence to not eat any added sodium was probably part of that. So I also did start feeling a little bit better when I included salt back in my diet. And I stopped getting that like brain fog and that inability to like focus and think, and feeling like I just needed to lay down all the time and let my blood pressure get back to normal. So it's been quite the dietary journey in dealing with the hypothyroid and the adrenal fatigue and the hypoglycemia and the polycystic ovarian syndrome diagnosis, which I still question. So these endocrine disorders, they take time. And while I am not on medication for my hypothyroid, while when I have blood tests, everything, appears to be normal, to the point that my doctor refuses to give me any more blood tests because, well, my TSH is normal and I'm asymptomatic, so why would we spend money doing that, right? So everything appears to me normal. My lady cycle is normal. It's not too bad, not too symptomatic either, and I have great energy, but at the same time, I am not one of those people that's gonna run an ultra marathon and be okay. Like, I can't do that. That is beyond the bounds of my body. I am not one of those people who can sleep for 6 hours a night and be okay. I need my 8 to 9 hours a night, or I'm gonna crash and I'm gonna get sick. I'm not one of those people who can like really push myself with stress, because I will get sick, my body will break down. And that's something that I think is partially genetic. I think it's partially like the damage I did was done, and I'm not sure I will ever be able to recover like 100%. And I'm fine with that. As someone who is like, could barely drag her ass out of bed for years, I'm fine. Like, I'm good. I'm happy with the results I've been able to achieve, right? So, there's one other thing with the hypothyroid and the adrenal fatigue that I think is really important to address when you're trying to deal with hypothyroid or any other endocrine disorder, and, pretty much every other disease. But especially with the hypothyroid, I felt like it was so important was the psychological issues that went into the hypothyroid. The emotional issues, I grew up in a household where I wasn't able to speak my mind, like, literally not allowed to speak, not allowed to be myself. If I did, I would be punished. There would be, like, severe consequences, right? Not physical, but emotional. And so I told my doctor one time my naturopathic doctor, and my mom worked with this doctor. Like, they were colleagues. And I was sitting there like, you know, I've lived with my mom and I've lived away from my mom a few times now, and I'm kind of starting to realize that, like, my mom is my hypothyroid. Like, if I'm with my mom, if I'm with my sister, I get my hypothyroid symptoms back. And part of that is, like, I'm with them, they're making fun of me for my diet, they're making my life more difficult, my mom's telling me I'm gonna, like, die of a protein deficiency, and so maybe my diet isn't as great as it should be. But then when I'm living away and I'm, like, taking a little bit better care of myself, my symptoms miraculously get better, right? So, hi Maggie. So I think it's very important to realize that, and there are still even times where, you know, if I'm not speaking my mind, if I don't feel like it's safe for me to speak my mind, I still feel that, like, that constriction in my throat. So let's all be glad that Maggie isn't hypothyroid, because it's a pain in the ass. Okay, so I will check in with you guys in the live chat. While I'm doing that, I have also been asked many, many times, what is my opinion of What the Health? The documentary that was just put out by the same guys that did Cowspiracy. It's on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend watching it. I've seen some great reviews. I have seen some reviews that are like, hey, what the hell? Why are you talking in absolutes? And why are you hyping this up and making it sound like it's a bigger deal than it actually is? I think they did a great job with the documentary. I think we're living in a time on the planet where in order to get people's attention, you have to be a little bit hyperbolic. Because we've had 20 or 30 years of, like, plant-based doctors being super reasonable and realistic about their recommendations and what they're saying, and that's, like, inching us towards, you know, cultural revolution, but it's gonna take a little bit more to, like, push us over the edge. And I, for one, am not that upset about using a little bit of a hyperbolic statement to get someone's attention and make them actually evaluate what the choices that they're making, right? One question I saw, she mentioned, like, towards the end, it felt a little bit, like, staged when they checked back in with the people who were trying the plant-based diet, and it's like they were miraculously getting better. But that is the world that we live in, where we're supposed to, like, cap our enthusiasm that people with incurable diseases are somehow cured and off of their medications after 3 weeks by making a fairly simplistic dietary change. And what? We're not supposed to talk that up? You know, that's amazing. And these are people who are living on the verge of death. Literally living on the verge of death. Like, I posted a video on my Lily Koi Hawaii Facebook page the other day, yesterday I think, of this plant-based doctor in Houston, and he's like, I've literally had people who were on life support, and we, like, fed them greens through their little life support tube, and got them better, and they literally walked out of the office. So, Elena, that documentary is called What the Health. It's on Netflix. It's also on iTunes. Sorry, I'm sweating, and so my skin is wet, and then I scratched myself, and now it looks like I was attacked by Wolverine. I'll just try to get that to go away. Okay. Let's check in. Alright. Yay, people healing hypothyroid. Yeah, I don't talk about hypothyroid that much anymore. Like, I did my video over 2 years ago about it, and it's like, it's a difficult thing, it's a difficult condition for people to deal with. And there's a lot that can be improved as far as hypothyroid and thyroid function goes. But it's not a miracle, and depending on, you know, length of time that you've been on medication or the severity of it, like, there can be limits to how much you can heal, and I don't want to say that to try to put a cap on people. Like, I want you to have realistic expectations. I want you to hope for the best, right? You're gonna see an improvement, regardless. If you clean up your diet, drink enough water, and get sleep, like, if you do those 3 things, you're gonna see a big improvement in your hypothyroid symptoms. You'll probably have to have medications adjusted. But it's like, just like I'm never going to be a frickin' marathon running person who can handle stress, I do think that there could be limits to how much we could heal. But the advice is always the same, like whole plant foods. For a lot of people with hypothyroid, it can be really wise to get rid of gluten. And I do believe I talked about that in my previous video. Cut out the gluten. It can be irritating for the thyroid, especially people with autoimmune hypothyroid, and that's autoimmune diseases across the board. Just get rid of the gluten. It's too much of a common trigger food to even risk it. I get a lot of questions about, can I eat kale if I have hypothyroid? And you definitely can. Like cruciferous vegetables, kale, cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, mustard greens, the list goes on. Some of the healthiest foods for human beings ever. I think that a big part of why my health didn't improve as quickly as it could have when I was on the raw vegan diet was because I wasn't eating cruciferous vegetables because I thought it was bad. When I started including more kale, cabbage, and broccoli sprouts in my diet, my health shot up very quickly. Like, they're excellent foods. The only time that those foods can be an issue is it has to do with with blocking iodine. I can't remember if it's blocking iodine absorption or iodine uptake into your thyroid. It's one of those, but it's only a problem if your iodine levels are really low to begin with. So that's another thing. Ketter, go scratch yourself somewhere else, please. I love you. Iodine. When I was diagnosed with hypothyroid, my naturopathic doctor had me taking iodine orally and rubbing it into my skin. I didn't know any better, but she was like mega dosing me with iodine, right? You don't need that much iodine. So then I went like 5 years without taking any iodine whatsoever and being really cavalier about my iodine intake. I don't think that was smart either. And then when I moved to Hawaii, I had insane seaweed cravings, and I ended up eating at least like 3 pounds of seaweed over the course of several months. Like nori sheets was what I was eating. And I realize now that was probably my body really wanting iodine. And then I ate a ton of it, and then I just got, one day I was like, I don't want any more seaweed. And to this day, I can eat a sheet or 2 once every couple of weeks, but that is how much I want. Every now and then I'll sprinkle some dulse flakes on, you know, my rice or something, and that's fine. But you don't have to overdo it with the iodine. Get some, don't get too much. That's fine. Eat your cruciferous vegetables. I just started sprouting broccoli sprouts. I finally got on that, you know, sprouting. Been vegan for 9 years and I never sprouted anything. Go figure. Oh. No. Never mind. What do I use on my hair? I do use shampoo on my hair. I've made hair care videos, and I showed you the products that I liked using. I use like a good clarifying or volumizing shampoo once per week. I have been playing around with conditioner use, but I'm not a big fan of conditioners. They tend to make my hair gunky and frizzier, ironically. And I have a big frizz problem with just like the top layer of hair. Like it just likes getting frizzy. I've been doing vinegar rinses, So I've been doing apple cider vinegar or just white vinegar rinsed through my hair. And that has been helping. I've been just washing my hair in cold water, which is kind of miserable. And I don't know if I'll be able to do it during the winter. Even though it's just like 10 degrees difference in Hawaii, it still matters. And the cold water has been really great on my hair, but I don't know, my hair just doesn't like this humidity. So it's like, it's healthy, you know, it's healthy and strong and grows like a frickin' weed, but someone is asking about blue and green algae supplements. Yes, algae. I love that word, algae. So, some of these supplements, I do believe it's like specifically spirulina, has been found to contain neurotoxic contaminants that are unable to be isolated from the spirulina. I don't think it's like every brand, but there's no real list about like which brands are safe. So I'm thinking spirulina might not be a great idea. I know it's like the blue Klamath Lake algae, I think, is like tested and was safe. I do believe. It's not something that I include in my diet. I kind of put them in the same category as most other superfoods where it's like, yeah, that's cool. But it's also $80, and I'm just gonna eat broccoli, you know? I'm just gonna stick to whole plant foods and not expose myself to a potential neurotoxin, because sometimes you just don't know. My favorite probiotic. It's tough to find a good, like, specifically vegan probiotic. So this, I've discussed it before in my videos about probiotics, where this is one of those subjects where if it was grown in a dairy medium, but then all the dairy was removed, so then they can sell it, and they're like, look, you can take this as a vegan, but they don't specify that it wasn't grown in dairy. You know, I feel like some people are taking advantage, but it's one of those things where probiotics are important enough to health. Like, gut health is so important that if you need to take probiotics, get whatever, like, super high potency probiotic you can get, and it's great. If you're having an issue like severe gut problems, like a C. diff infection, ooh, deadly, or something like celiacs or Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, the probiotic, you can buy it on Amazon. It's called VSL number 3. It's definitely not vegan. But if you're dealing with ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, I just want you to get better. I'm not going to freak out about the ethical issues right now. Like, I just want you to not have your freaking intestines resected. So that can be a really great option. If you're just like, oh, yeah, maybe I just want to poop more, or just like be sure that my gut's healthy, so I'll take some probiotics. If you want to spend your money that way, that's fine, you know. But even if you get a product that's like 100 billion probiotics per capsule and you take that, that's still like a drop in the ocean as far as the number of microbes that are living in your gut. So that's why I think that it's much more important and much more cost effective and much more effective in general to just like eat insane amounts of fiber from whole plant foods, okay? That's all you gotta do, is just feed the crap out of the probiotics that are already in your gut, and then they're gonna multiply like little mofos. You don't even have to worry about it. You're gonna get like $300 worth of probiotics just from eating a cabbage. I promise you. So, what is it? Like the raw... something like Raw Life, My Kind Organics, I don't know. I just go to the health food store and I'm like, that one's on sale and it has 100 billion. I'll take it. But that said, I also only take probiotics if I, God forbid, have to take antibiotics. You know? So I'm not... And apparently there's a bunch of research coming out that's now finding like, oh, maybe taking probiotics every day isn't a great thing. So it should be something that you take for a little while to get a certain desired effect, like to give your gut a little boost as you start to heal your body, like if you are coming off non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs or off antibiotics or off the oral contraceptive pill, like give yourself some probiotics and let your gut get back to normal. But the other thing is that they're finding that the probiotics that are found in these products are transient. So they're coming through your gut, they're alive while they move through your gut, and then you poop them out. Because, to be perfectly honest, the real estate in your intestines is pretty much already packed. So like those probiotics show up in the pill and they're like, okay, where am I gonna live? And all the bacteria that's already in your gut is like nowhere. You're leaving with the poop. So that said, I know that there are some people who physically feel better, like their bowel movements are more regular if they continuously take probiotics, and for those people, I'm gonna say, like, if that's the case for you, then do it. Continuously take a probiotic. I would get one that is, I like to go for the ones that are like at least 100 billion per serving, just because more bang for your buck, whatever. And then get one with several different strains of lactobacilli type strains. It'll have it listed on the back, and then several different strains of bifido as well. And, you're lucky if you get like 12 or 13 strains, but there are hundreds of strains in your gut. So, realistically speaking, probiotics may be more of a waste of money than anything else, unless you're just healing, give yourself a little boost. But it's mostly about the prebiotics. It's mostly about the fiber from whole plant foods. Yeah, see, Maria says here, she's struggling with veganism. Her iron, vitamin D, B12, calcium is all very low, and she has bad stomach pains. So in a case like that, like, I don't know what her history is, but she sounds like someone who would actually probably benefit from taking probiotics in conjunction with a whole plant food diet, because if your gut isn't healthy, you're not able to absorb nutrients properly, you're not able to absorb or assimilate minerals, vitamins as effectively as possible. So we can go through this quickly. For iron, it's if your digestive system is incapacitated in some way, be that from a history of antibiotic use or eating disorder or just like really, really poor diet for a long time, that can definitely affect your ability to absorb things like iron and calcium. So working on trying to heal your gut is important. Fibrous whole plant foods. I understand that can be painful with, if you're having stomach issues, sometimes you get crampy pains with that. I would also see if your doctor can check you out for like celiac disease potentially, because it's surprisingly common. And it often goes undiagnosed for a long time, and the people who don't get diagnosed suffer a lot, and they end up potentially losing part of their bowel or intestines. And it can be really serious. As far as B12, I don't know if you're supplementing with B12. That's very important to supplement with, and I highly recommend supplementing with methylcobalamin. That way your body can just straight up use it in its methylated form. It doesn't have to convert anything. Like if you take cyanocobalamin, your body has to first break it down, remove the cyanide, take the cobalamin, and then methylate it so that your body can use it. So I figure just take the methylcobalamin B12. I use the sublingual spray from My Kind Organics. I have talked about that before. So that's really important. Vitamin D, if you're healthy, you can get your vitamin D from the sun. But that is like if you're healthy, because there are several different conversion processes that have to go through the kidneys and all the parts of the body, I think the liver as well, that have to convert your vitamin D into its usable form. Also, if you've been dealing with any eating disorder stuff, or if you're very underweight, you can have issues with the with fat storage for the vitamin D, so your stores can be quite low, which means you might need a little bit more in your diet. So if your vitamin D is low, like, I don't like supplements, but supplement. The same thing with your iron and calcium. If your iron and calcium is low and you can't get it up with your diet and your digestive system is just not up to par, supplement. It's not great, it's not ideal, you know, but it's also not going to kill you. So this is what I mean when I say supplement wisely. So if you have like confirmed low levels, if you've tried to get it back up through diet, if your body might be a little bit broken down from the abuse that it's been through, or from because of genetic factors that just makes you a little bit more susceptible to digestive issues, or being unable to properly absorb and convert nutrients, supplement. Like, it's just when people, when you know, you read online that, oh, calcium's healthy for you, so I'm going to start supplementing with calcium. It's those people that need to worry about overdoing it. If you're confirmed with low levels, supplement. You know, you're keeping your body healthy as you heal is more important than doing it like 100% supplement free and all natural. Like, give your body what it needs until it heals to a point when it can do it itself. So it's a process. I'm not saying that you'll have to, you know, supplement forever with these nutrients, but supplement for a little while, get rechecked. The assumption would be that they go up. If they're not, you got other things to talk about with your doctor about what's happening, and that's beyond my scope. Like, I can't tell you what's going on with that. But the assumption would be that they go up, and then you can consider not supplementing for a while and seeing where you go with your diet, right? And then if they go back down, reassess. Maybe you still have to, yeah, you can get your vitamin D in the tanning beds, but I honestly feel like there are too many risks associated with the tanning beds. And I think they're like a specific UV stuff. I don't know. I don't trust them. Oh, LR Hurst says I should make my mom read Out of Control. My mom should do a lot of things. Okay. Oh, I missed so many questions. Yeah, collaboration would be fun. I love that vegan couple. I want to be in the same, like, physical place with them at some point in my life. Have I seen Dr. Greger's Rice and Arsenic series? I have. Oh my god, has this been in my teeth the whole time? Son of a bitch. Sorry, I had a smoothie with kale in it for frickin' lunch. Good God. Someone could have told me. Maybe someone did tell me. Good Lord. Okay. Alright. Yeah, the rice and the arsenic. It's definitely something to think about. I know that, I get our rice from the Lundberg Organic Farms in California, so it's like the arsenic contamination is mostly a problem with the long grain rice varieties that are grown down in the South where they used to grow all the cotton. So, yes, but rice is definitely a big part of our diet, and after watching his videos, like, I've known about it for about a year, you know, there's arsenic in the rice, and I've said to Levi several times, like, I think maybe we should consider, you know, varying the grains and what we're eating a little bit more, but he's a little bit of a picky eater sometimes. I love how he says, he's always like, yeah, I mean, I'm like, what do you want for dinner? Whatever, and I'm like, how about this? And he's like, just cook some rice, you know, and I'm just like, fuck. But, so I did tell him after I watched those videos, I was like, look, we're gonna cut down on the rice. So, It's a little bit tough because, I mean, millet is like my go-to awesome option, but it's not really good the next day. And I like to cook a lot of food and then eat it over a period of several days, so I'm not cooking every day. So I'll have to figure something out. We got some oat groats, and I love barley, but the oats and the barley and the rye, like, they're delicious. And Maggie, if you cook your millet with a little bit less water, it gets a lot more separated. It's more like quinoa. So you just play with the water amount. But the rye, those 3 grains, I'm wondering if they'll bother my gluten sensitivity as much. I'm not sure. I'll try it. I'll see what happens. I might get some breakouts. But I'm going to try to stick to the other gluten-free grains as much as possible, even though they're more expensive. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But yes, we are decreasing our rice intake, although I'm not going to cut out rice altogether. Like, I'm not going to freak out because God knows, we're probably going to find something, in 3 weeks, and it's like, guess what? Everything has arsenic in it. It's all going to kill us. Wait. Hold on. Ooh, Lauren, my thoughts on What the Health. You're gonna have to go back and watch, like, from minute 11 to 15. Wow, this comment section is amazing. You guys got, like, whole conversations going on down here. This is awesome. Oh, does someone have a UTI? I see D-Manos. Yeah, UTIs are a frickin' nightmare. I definitely recommend the D-Manos. It's spelled like D-MANNOSE. Yeah, that's right. D-Manos is great for the UTIs. Like, I usually just go to the health food store and I, like, throw myself up on the counter. And I'm like, it burns when I pee! And they're like, over here. And then they just hand me what I need. And it's usually some kind of, like, great UTI formula. And it works like a charm. The cranberry is also wonderful. What cranberry does is it, like, prevents the bacteria from being able to stick to the lining of your urethra, which means that you just pee out the bacteria. As much fluids as you can take in, it'll be great. You can remineralize them, get some electrolytes at the same time, but just flush it out, because what's really important is to be flushing out the urinary tract regularly, right? And then some of those supplements are fantastic as well. For the, I know D-Manos is a great one. You can go with that. My thoughts on cracking your own back, neck, and knuckles. Good or bad? I think there are a few different schools of thought on this. One school of thought is like, oh, it's just, air bubbles entering and exiting the joint capsules. It's not a big deal. And then I've heard schools of thought that are like, when you crack your bones, it's like, it's jamming the joint in such a way that can cause arthritis. So, I'm not sure, but I also know that, like, having your stuff out of joint can also cause arthritis. So, I'm not totally sure. Levi, like, cracks his neck like this, and I've heard from good chiropractors that rotational adjustments are a big no-no, so if you do this and crack your neck, I don't think that's a good idea. What I do is I put my hands behind my back, and then I go up like this, and then that gives me a double chin and cracks my ribs. And that's a lifesaver for me. But I just crack. I feel like crack what needs to be cracked. Like, I don't like this stuff when you're cracking your knuckles. Like, that just, it feels unnecessary to me, but I understand that different people have different joint capsules. Okay? Oh, I I feel like I'm behind on these questions. Yeah, sage bearer. Oh, I was like, sage bear, that's cute. You caught me live. Well, we're not ending anytime soon. I'm only at 40 minutes. I feel like we could go forever. What would I recommend to someone struggling to get enough calories in? I agree with Maggie, like, if you eat more frequently, that can be helpful. I guess I was blessed because when I used to binge, I really stretched out my stomach. And then when I switched to the 80-10-10 style raw food thing, where I was eating like 10 to 12 large bananas at a time, I really stretched out my stomach there too. So I'm kind of a believer in, it's like if you're struggling to get it in, just fit it in a little bit and your tummy will expand. If you don't want to do that, or if it's just uncomfortable, I totally understand. And you can just try to, switch to like 4 meals a day instead of 3, or like 3 and some snacks, or whatever works for you. There's some, like, it's important to eat enough. That's just the fact. You need enough calories and you need enough nutrition. There's research that indicates that, like, it's more healthy for us endocrinologically to try to to eat large meals and then give our digestive systems time in between meals, or like a long fast overnight, and that can be good for us. But if you're just trying to get enough calories to prevent weight loss or nutrient deficiency, I would just recommend eating as frequently as possible, and larger meals if you can. Do I have tips for reducing gut inflammation? Fiber. Like, fiber from whole plant foods appears to be the magical thing, because that supports the beneficial gut bacteria populations, which then produce a bunch of short-chain fatty acids, which support the cells in the lining of your intestines. So taking turmeric is also helpful as far as inflammation goes. And a lot of people are like, oh my god, but the turmeric isn't totally absorbed in curcumin. And this is one of those situations where it's like, even if you're just dietarily eating turmeric, it goes through your gut. So the cells in your gut are definitely exposed to it. And that can help with inflammation as well. Trying to get stress lowered a little bit can be equally as important. And knowing the triggers for you for gut inflammation are also very important. So if you have like food sensitivities or anything like that, it can be great to eliminate those foods. Obviously, one thing that has worked really well for a lot of people is doing like very simple meals. So if you want to do this with like fruits, people would call that a mono meal, where you sit down and you say just eat bananas, or just eat mangoes, or just eat peaches, for one meal. And since it's not as complicated, it's easier for your body to digest all at once, and that can help with gut health a little bit as well. And I say like whole plant foods with lots of fiber, but there are different types of fiber. So there's insoluble fiber and soluble fiber. And the insoluble fiber would be like what you would find in raw kale when you chew on it, and it's like you swallow it and it's kind of in chunks, and then you probably see something that looks a little bit similar when you go to the bathroom and it leaves your body. So insoluble fiber is the fiber that can't be broken down, okay? Goes through your system, and that can be kind of irritating and aggravating to the gut. So while you're working on healing your gut and healing that inflammation, I'm not going to tell you to totally avoid insoluble fiber, because it's kind of impossible to totally avoid insoluble fiber on a healthy whole plant food diet. But you can stick to foods that are a little bit richer in soluble fiber. My favorite foods like that are like bananas, sweet potatoes, potatoes. Most whole grains have like the insoluble fiber on the outside. I like to include some legumes in there because they're not quite as tough and rough as the whole grains. And they have all the great oligosaccharides that feed your good gut bacteria. So trying to keep it to foods that are like, that you would think of as softer and smoother or creamier when you chew on them, as opposed to like harder or stringier or denser. Okay. Yes! Just got How Not to Die. I'm kind of jealous because I want to read it again and have it all be new and fresh. Although it's still amazing. Yes, I am continuing the posture series. I've just been such a lazy little munchkin this week. Except I haven't been lazy because I've been like writing furiously. I just felt like focusing on that more this week. But yes, posture series. The next 2 installments are going to be about strengthening the lower body and then releasing the lower body to treat lower back pain. So stay tuned. I'll be working on it in over like the next week or 2. Maggie says, would you mind discussing ferritin versus blood iron? I can discuss that a little bit. It's definitely something that I could brush up on again to understand more, but to the best of my knowledge, blood iron is like available iron in the blood, and ferritin is the stored iron, the stored form of iron. And I have read that it is very common in vegans to have lower ferritin levels, so lower stored iron, and that could be for any number of reasons. It's not necessarily a problem. It doesn't mean that we're all anemic and dying. But what research has found over, several decades is that super high levels of iron in the blood or in the body can lead to high levels of oxidation and potential DNA damage, and it can raise your chances of heart attack, other cardiac problems, cancers, all kinds of things. And it's one of those things where it's like, is it correlation or causation? It's pretty impossible to tease out. Now, iron does oxidize, it does, and it does cause potential DNA damage. So that could be a way that it causes, cancer or causes damage to the arteries of our body. So our bodies are designed to obviously have iron, like you need enough, but you don't need too much. And what happens with iron, with people eating a standard Western diet that is high in animal products, specifically meat, is that the iron found in those animal products, called heme iron, is absorbed very efficiently. So your body can't necessarily decide how much of that iron it wants to absorb and how much it wants to leave in the digestive tract to be pooped out. And that's the other thing. The more iron that's going through your digestive tract, apparently the higher your rates of digestive tract cancers. So again, correlation, causation, we don't really know. It's associated, right? So the iron that's found in plant foods and in things like, cast iron skillets is called non-heme iron. Easy to remember. And non-heme iron isn't absorbed as efficiently. So that is why when you tell people that you're vegan, they're like, oh my god, you're going to become anemic and die. Not so. It's just that your body gets to choose how much iron it wants to absorb. So in a healthy person with a healthy digestive tract, if they're low in iron, if they're low in blood iron, or if they have too low stores of ferritin, stored iron, then when they consumed a lot of non-heme iron, theoretically speaking, in a healthy person with a healthy digestive tract, their intestines, their body, whatever, would choose how much iron it wants to absorb out of that. And so theoretically it would absorb a lot of that iron because you're low in iron, you need more, and that would bring your levels up. Say, like, someone like me who has, like, great iron levels at the moment, like, woohoo, I'll celebrate. If I eat a ton of non-heme iron, say I, like, you know, have a bunch of blackstrap molasses or something, and a bunch of non-heme iron goes through my digestive tract, I'm probably not going to absorb that much of it because I don't need it. My body doesn't need it, so it just says, we'll just let her poop it out. Whatever. We don't need it. So, I don't even remember the point I was trying to make. I just got lost in all the talk about the iron. Was there even a point to it? I don't know. That's just the story on iron. For people who have low iron and it's like they're trying to eat iron-rich foods and they're eating their iron-rich foods in conjunction with vitamin C-rich foods and they're being smart about their oxalate intake or oxalic acid intake at the same time as iron, and those people who are doing all of these smart things that we do on a smart, varied, whole plant food diet, and their iron levels aren't going up, I'd say you might have an issue going on in your digestive tract. It might not be as healthy as it could be, needs to be. It could be that it's healing, it could be that it gets better. But for those people that can't get their levels up, this is where we come back to wise supplementation. Okay? Okay. Yeah, like Maggie says, she has normal blood iron but low ferritin. So it's really common for, and I think you messaged me, Maggie. You look familiar, and I remember thinking about this before. Like if you, it's normal for vegans to have lower stored iron. And that's one of those things that the medical establishment likes to freak out about. But we don't really know if we need to freak out about it. Especially, you know, if you're not currently hemorrhaging blood, you'll probably be fine. Yes, I have heard of drinking pure aloe juice to help your gut heal. I think it sounds like a nice thing to do. I'm not sure if it will work any miracles. Good night. I hope you sleep well. Someone's up at 3 a.m. Oh. What's PCO? What's PCO? Okay. Slippery elm bark. Yes, I've heard that is quite healing. But I'm not an herbalist. I don't really know enough about herbs. I'll probably recommend something and give all of you explosive diarrhea. So, know your limits, is what I say. Okay. I don't remember what a normal iron storage level is for vegans off the top of my head, but I do know that it is in Becoming Vegan, the comprehensive edition, which is on my desk right now. Polycystic ovarian syndrome. Okay, yeah. Yeah, well, polycystic ovarian syndrome, I've talked about it before. We can talk about it again. It's one of those things that it's an endocrine disorder, which we were talking about at the beginning, and this is how I feel about it. I just want to peel my own face off when I think about endocrine disorders because they're so complicated. So, and again, this is one of those things, as with any endocrine disorder, it's like, I want to say that you can cure it. I would love to say that, but it's one of those things where the hormonal swings can go back and forth so violently, and it is so dependent on so many factors. What you're eating, how much you're sleeping, your stress levels, your relationships, what you're drinking, the chemicals you're exposed to. which is like your genetics, like what happened when you were in the womb, what happened when your grandmother was in the womb. It's so frustrating because it is so out of our control. And trust me, I've like sat on my couch wondering why me so many times when I'm having to deal with hormonal issues, when I have in the past, when I still do, and thinking like, you know, why can't I cure this? Why isn't there a cure? And it's so frustrating. And with the medications that are offered, and with the herbal remedies that are possible, it's like, it's so easy to be out of whack, and then you throw in some medication and throw in some herbs, and it just makes you more out of whack. I can't tell you how many times I've been really frustrated, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll go see a doctor, I'll go see a naturopath, I'll go see my regular doctor and see what they can offer me, and all they can offer me is synthetic hormones or natural bioidentical hormones, and I've tried those in the past, and it just, like, they just wreck me. The medications wreck me, and the hormones didn't help, and it wasn't until I put, like, a good several years into a good diet, sleeping as much as I possibly could, trying to get my stress levels down, which is still a struggle, you know, because I'm a freaker-outer at heart. Like, I just want to freak the fuck out about everything all the time. And trying to get my relationships in order so that I'm not, like, surrounded by abusive people who don't allow me to express myself was a big part of it. For polycystic ovarian syndrome specifically, like, I felt like acupuncture was beneficial. My acupuncturist gave me some herbs, some herbal formulas that I felt like were helpful a little bit, but again, it was like, is this helping me stabilize, or is this destabilizing me? I can't even tell. Like, there was someone, herbalist recommended taking some chastity berry to try to help with some symptoms like acne and some hormonal fluctuations with PMS, and I was like, okay, I'll take it for a little while, and I took it for about 6 weeks, and then I started having a bunch of pelvic pain, like, just all the time, and, like, spotting, and breakthrough bleeding, and just, like, all kinds of shit, and I was like, where did this come from? You know, because I went from one symptom, and I just got swung to the other side of the pendulum, and, you know, had to come back from that then, too, and try to get stable. So, in my experience with these kinds of issues, it has served me so well to leave my body alone as much as possible while giving it what it needs to thrive, and that's a whole plant food diet. Polycystic ovarian syndrome is very closely related with insulin dysregulation, right? You know, if you Google polycystic ovarian syndrome and how to cure it and what diet to eat, you basically get a type 2 diabetes diet, which doesn't cure type 2 diabetes, you know, which drives me crazy. Like, who was ever cured by the American Diabetes Association's diet? No one. So, gosh, let's recommend it to other people dealing with similar problems. So, you know, what helps me, I can't find it, it's in there somewhere, Dr. Neil Bernard's guide on preventing and reversing type 2 diabetes, and I read that, and I was like, alright, well, since that's good for insulin regulation, it must be good for polycystic ovarian syndrome too. And what he recommends is basically like a whole plant food diet, you know, low fat, no added oils, avocado every now and then, low in nuts and seeds. And that is what works for me, you know? Like, a couple of months ago, I was like, I don't know if I consciously did it or if I was just like, I'll have some more nuts and seeds. I'll have some more avocado. Let's just see what happens, you know? It's been like 5 years. I'll see what happens to me when I have more fat. My blood sugar felt fine, but when it came to that time of the month, I got absolutely fucking wrecked with, like, really bad PMS. My boobs swelled up. and I got the worst cramps that I've had in ages, and TMI, the flow was like heavier and clottier than it had been in years, and I was like, the fuck gives, you know? This month, I, just easily brought the fat back down, went right back to normal. So, my average week for eating nuts, seeds, and avocados, I'll have like, our avocados in Hawaii are big. They're like this big. So I'll probably have like a quarter avocado per day. I don't feel like I really want more. Maybe I'll have like up to a half of an avocado per day. And then I would say like 5 times a week, I usually do like some either flax seeds or chia seeds, hemp seeds, or pumpkin seeds for my morning meal, and I'll have probably 2 tablespoons of those, not a lot. And then every now and then I indulge in some Brazil nuts because they're delicious. I don't really like almonds. I know walnuts are really healthy, but they taste like halitosis, bad breath to me, so I don't like those. So that's pretty much what I have. It's been really easy since Levi gave up all of the chips and processed foods. Like, I haven't had any oils or fats from that anymore, and I feel great, I do have to say. I feel fantastic. So, it's not a lot. Sometimes I'll I'll sprinkle sesame seeds on top of my arsenic laced rice. Or, I guess that's pretty much it. Sometimes I'll grind up some like poppy seeds because they're super high in calcium and opioids. So now I'm just being silly with you. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the thing about hypothyroid and other other endocrine issues. It really is down to fixing yourself, because the best that doctors can do right now is like help you kinda try to manage it. And that's like, ugh. Have I ever tracked the amount of antioxidants I get? That's a very interesting question. I have not tracked antioxidants. I didn't even know there was an RDA for antioxidants. Well, and this is interesting. She says that when you exercise, are stressed, and eat, you need more antioxidants, which is true. I'll give you that much. You're definitely under more oxidative stress when you are stressed, or when you exercise, or say you're like exposed to high heat or cold. But exercise is also a hormetic stress, which means that it is stressful and it creates oxidation in your body, but it triggers genes. It triggers the expression of genes that produce our own intrinsic antioxidants, which is cool. So when you exercise, you end up getting a flood of intrinsic, that means created within your body, antioxidants, which then flood you, right? Which means that, like, you don't necessarily have to get all of your antioxidants from your diet. There's potential for you to make those yourself. And whether or not you're able to express those genes has a lot to do with like epigenetics and your overall lifestyle and health. So it's important to, eat plenty of antioxidant-rich whole plant foods, just to support your overall health. But I don't know if it's going to serve us to freak out about the amount of antioxidants we get, and or purposefully supplement with antioxidants, because as research has indicated, like synthetic antioxidants that are created in a lab, which you then take to supplement, they don't work in your body the same way that antioxidants from whole plant foods do. In fact, they can be damaging to your body. So There's no easy way out. I don't think we need to freak out about it. As long as you're eating whole plant foods and you're trying to get a wide variety and you're focusing on including antioxidant rich foods in your body, in your diet, like berries, herbs and spices, vegetables, dark leafy greens. As long as you're getting like lots of those, eating lots of different colors, I don't think it's going to serve us to freak out. And there is no scientific indication that we need to. Okay? There's just some speculation. Probably from bloggers who read scientific data every now and then freak out. And the scientific data isn't even that good. You read some of these, I won't get into it right now, but some of these studies come to these ridiculous conclusions. Or, it's it says conclusion at the end of the abstract and you read it, and then you read the whole thing and you're like, this is totally out of context here. How are you going to create mania and hysteria based on a really weird study design? Anyway. Yeah, it appears that we're doing a live stream every other week. Do I think feeding dogs turmeric is healthy? Interesting question. I know someone locally who grows a lot of turmeric root and they let their dogs eat it and they say that it's great for their breath. But I also know that dogs, especially dogs eating a vegan diet, are more prone to kidney issues, and since the turmeric is high in oxalic acid, which can bind to calcium and create kidney stones in humans, I don't know what that pathway would be for dogs. I would say that, if you feed that to your dog, I would keep the dose low and be very careful with it. Hold on. Oh, God. Sorry, I'm getting sucked into the comment section right now. You know what dogs are really supposed to eat? This isn't vegan at all. But, the raw meaty bone diet is, the healthiest diet for dogs. I feed my dogs vegan kibble right now. And then they get bones, raw meaty bones every now and then that I get from a local place, which is the pits of eternal hell. I hate that it happens, and I hate handling this stuff, and I hate that it's a dead animal's body part, but that's what dogs are supposed to eat, and it's really the best. Caroline asks, can adrenal fatigue cause your vision to get blurry temporarily when you stand up? It goes black. Maggie then immediately and accurately says, Caroline, that is usually low blood pressure, but you know what? Adrenal fatigue and your blood pressure are intimately connected. I'll break this down. So, the adrenal glands. What usually happens with adrenal fatigue is that it's caused by some kind of chronic stress that can either be psychological stress or it can be physical stress, like an infection or other illness, right? So your adrenals get stressed. They start pumping out high levels of cortisone and adrenaline and aldosterone, and it goes up. And then that, if I remember correctly, that makes the sodium concentrations in your blood go up, makes your blood pressure go up, and you get high blood pressure, right? Okay? That's early stages of adrenal issues. That's adrenal hyperfunction. Eventually your adrenal glands get exhausted. That's why it's called adrenal exhaustion, adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue syndrome, and then eventually your adrenal function goes down so that even when you're under that same psychological or physical stress, your adrenal glands aren't able to secrete the amounts of cortisol or aldosterone that they usually are, and that aldosterone controls your sodium and potassium balance, which helps to control your blood blood pressure and blood volume, right? So once those two are low and your adrenals aren't able to make enough, puts your blood pressure down, to the best of my knowledge, and then it makes the sodium levels in your blood go down too. So I'd say, like, if you have the symptom where no matter how much water you drink, you never feel like you're really hydrated, that could be adrenal caused, but there are like 1,001 other causes of low blood pressure, so keep in mind that, like, I am an unqualified YouTuber. I cannot diagnose you. This is not a diagnostic exam. This is a live stream in which all I know about you is that your name starts with C. Yeah. Okay. Lily, would a very high amount of antioxidants, barberries, or amla powder help cure acne because they combat oxidative stress and inflammation and reduce sebum production? Possibly, but taking super high levels of dietary antioxidants could also have other unintended consequences, like your body not producing as many intrinsic antioxidants. But I don't think it's something that's, like, gonna hurt you. It's definitely not gonna kill you. I don't foresee it causing any other issues, especially if you're taking it from something like barberries or amla powder. And I know that Dr. Greger has talked about barberries and acne specifically before. So that could be definitely something to try. And it's something that is definitely a much better option than, like, taking Accutane or ineffective antibiotics for acne. So I would say give it a try. See how it goes for you. It's not going to hurt you, you know? The Plant Paradox by Dr. Stephen Gundry. I have not read that. My thoughts on powdered peanut butter. It tastes weird. It's not nearly as satisfying as regular peanut butter. Definitely put it in my banana ice cream if I wanted to, but I mean it also still contains fat. Like, it's not that much better. I don't know. If it's also, you know, highly processed, and I do believe has a decent amount of sugar in it. And sugar and fat put together like that is never a great idea. I don't know. If I eat something with peanut butter, I'm just gonna eat peanut butter. But peanut butter's super freaking addictive, and I don't like unsalted peanut butter. So let's just call this what it is. I just want to eat something that's salty and fatty. Peanut butter. I haven't seen Eating You Alive. I think because... Was it about parasites? I don't know if I want to eat. Do I have a favorite protein powder for smoothies? Yeah, protein! No, I don't, because I don't take isolated protein supplements like those found in proteins. I don't think it's a good idea. It can raise your levels of insulin-like growth factor, similarly to the ways that dairy do. And I, for one, am not a human being who needs more insulin-like growth factor in their life. I'm just not. So, I don't use protein powder. I don't recommend protein powders. They come with risks. Yes, even the nice non-GMO, organic, all-natural pea proteins, they're all isolated proteins. I don't trust them. Okay. Yeah, the peanut butter powder, like, she says it's unsweetened and has 2 grams of fat. I see. Well, eat it if you want to. It's not going to hurt you. Like, if it's something that is really bringing joy to your life, eat it and enjoy it and appreciate it for its ability to add that to your life. I can't do that. what do I think about consuming dulse/seaweed for helping heal hypothyroid? I did mention this earlier, Jillian, perhaps you weren't here, but consuming like small amounts of iodine from seaweeds is a great idea. I mentioned it like when I first moved to Hawaii, I ate so much seaweed because I think I was really low in iodine, and then I just was naturally craving it, and I built up my levels, and then one day I was like, I don't want any more seaweed. So now I do use like nori and dulse for its iodine. I don't use the other types of seaweed because some of them have been found to contain contaminants, and others are really high in iodine. So I stick to nori and dulse. Those are like the safe ones, and I don't remember off the top of my head which ones are contaminated and which ones are... The names are just too weird. Okay. All right, I'll look for that documentary, Caroline. Thank you for the recommendation. Eating You Alive. Oh, that's too sweet. Oh yeah, Maggie, since you mentioned Bragg's, like I know I've talked about Bragg's liquid aminos before and how I use it. Oh, I'll just address this first. She uses Vega Sport protein powder. Shouldn't trust it. Look, it's just all protein powders are like contain isolated proteins, even if it's isolated plant proteins. Be those like isolated pea proteins, isolated soy proteins, isolated hemp proteins. Like, I don't do isolated proteins. If you have the container and it's something that you enjoy taking and it helps you feel like satisfied and safe on a vegan diet, like you can take it. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to, it'll stress your kidneys a little bit because it's extra protein, and it might spike your insulin-like growth factor a little bit, which happens with exercise and stuff anyway. So don't stress about it. But I don't want to spend my money on protein supplements that have potential issues, and as far as I'm concerned, virtually no benefit. So that's just like, but if you love it and you like taking it and it makes you feel good, I'm not going to get up your ass about that, okay? What was I talking about? Oh, the Bragg's liquid aminos. Well, I was investigating that. As it turns out, I don't think I'm going to buy it anymore. Like, because the way that the Bragg's liquid aminos is made is apparently unknown, but it's speculated that they do it by adding hydrochloric acid to soybeans, which isn't a big problem, but then they have to add sodium bicarbonate, aka baking soda, to it, which is what gives it its salty taste, right? So, I don't really want to eat baking soda. I hope that they're using aluminum-free baking soda, but at this point, I don't trust anyone. How much protein do we need? It is agreed by virtually every single health-associated organization that has taken on this question, that human beings thrive on 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So I weigh about 120 pounds, depending on how much I've eaten that day. And so that's about, like, what, 53 kilos or something? So 53 times 0.8 brings us to somewhere around, like, 48 grams of protein per day is what I need. 48 grams of protein per day. If I track my calories, which is really rare, I usually end up getting between 60 and 80 grams of protein per day without specifically eating any high protein food. That's just from fruits, vegetables, whole grains, some beans, and, like, as we've discussed, a couple of tablespoons of seeds usually. So when people on plant-based diets say, you don't have to worry about protein, they mean it, because you literally don't have to worry about protein. And the protein recommendation, the 0.8 grams of protein per kilo of body weight per day, was based on like the highest protein needs from a certain group of people, and then they took it and then they doubled it just to be safe. So we could actually survive. I could probably survive on like 20 or 30 grams of protein a day, and I would be fine. Theoretically, you know, I'm not going to do that because I'd have to eat a much smaller amount of food or survive off of dates, which isn't going to happen. But anyway, if you're eating a varied whole plant food diet, you don't have to worry about protein. As long as you're eating enough calories. And yes, Maggie is absolutely right. Too much protein elevates your risk of cancer. Now, that's not necessarily seen with plant proteins as much as it is animal proteins, but isolated plant proteins, like those found in protein supplements, or like, you know, Cliff bars, they contain the isolated soy protein as far as I know. The isolated plant proteins that have been processed and taken away from the whole plant food, that's when I start to worry a little bit about insulin-like growth factor getting spiked, and about, you know, like a little bit of stress on the kidneys. It's not a big deal. You don't have to freak out. And I still eat Cliff bars sometimes if I'm hiking or whatever. But, you know, you just don't have to worry about protein. At least not getting too little protein. Oh no. Exotic Parallel. I like that name. She says, I'm in a nutrition class, and when we were learning about heart disease, my stupid teacher said, there's been new science that shows saturated fat is very healthy. What do you say to these people? You say, do you have a copy of that science? And what they'll hand to you is one of two meta-analyses. Oh, you are a guy, by the way. Sorry about that. I didn't know. I don't mean anything by it. But they'll hand you one of two meta-analyses that were pretty darn flawed. So these studies that showed that, like, what they showed, by the way, wasn't that saturated fat is healthy. What these studies showed was that saturated fat didn't necessarily make heart disease worse. And they did this by looking at studies where they took all of these confounding factors and they what is it called? I can't think of the word. But they got rid of so many confounding factors that it took away the meaningfulness of their study. So, like, they took people and they broke them down into, like, okay, well, these people eat a lot of saturated fat and these people eat very little. But out of the people who eat a lot of saturated fat, they took away everyone who had high cholesterol, because cholesterol could be a confounding factor, right? So they took away all the people who had high cholesterol, which left the people who ate a lot of saturated fat who didn't have high cholesterol, which, let's face it, is a genetic abnormality that is not common in modern world, right? And those people, yes, it did appear that it didn't matter if they ate more saturated fat. They still had the same amount of heart disease. So yeah, you can find a population, if you try hard enough, that can eat saturated fat and not die more often from heart attacks. Like, and so that's the kind of study design that came up with these findings. Hi, Annie. So they're not good studies. And the problem is that people want to hear good things about their shitty habits, and they want to feel validated in what they already do and what they want to believe. And so when your teacher says something like that, if it were me, I don't like to get confrontational with people face to face unless I feel like I'm on really strong footing as far as, like, what I'm able to verbalize, right? So if you want to get a little bit more informed about these studies, I know Dr. Greger has done some great studies about it. Dr. Garth Davis, he did an interview with Rich Roll like 3 years ago, which I re-listened to recently, and he did a fantastic job breaking down those studies. I think Dr. McDougall has broken down those studies really well, excuse me, done some good information about that. She was like, so he was right, Dr. Greger has the... okay. Anyway. But it's like, there have been good analyses. I think he talked about it, Dr. Garth Davis talked about it in Proteinaholic as well. I need to reread that book. It was a good book. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess if I were in that class now, today, like, knowing what I know and feeling capable of speaking, I would probably, like, ask, what studies are those? Do you have a copy of them? Like, can we go over them? How are they designed? Who funded them? You know? Because when they're funded by the dairy industry, you have to question that. And then I would ask questions like, what about all of the other research from the past 100 years that have found unequivocally that saturated fat and cholesterol consumption increase heart disease? What about those? What are you going to do with that mountainous stack of scientific evidence when 2 poorly designed studies come out that contradict it, that don't actually contradict it, they just stretched their findings and stretched their conclusions, which they got away with doing because everybody wanted to hear it. Don't you just love it when people tell you that eating too much bananas is going to kill you because of the potassium? I was told one time, I was taken aside by this lady, and she was like, I'm really concerned because the amount of potassium in the bananas that you're eating. You know, that's how they kill people. They inject them with potassium, and it stops their heart. Your heart could stop. And I was like, first of all, I have it on good authority that you routinely take speed and cocaine at the same time. So if anyone needs to be worrying about cardiac health, it's you. Second, I would have to eat, like, I did the math one time. It was like 435 bananas. Within 30 seconds, I would have to eat that and absorb the potassium in it in 30 seconds for the potassium in the banana to have any effect on my heart function. And that is only with the thought process that bananas, that the potassium from bananas and potassium chloride that is injected into people is the same thing. Fucking people. That's one of those situations where I'm like, I'm gonna give you 10 seconds to take back what you just said. No judgment, and I will not unleash this upon you. You have 10 seconds to think about it. I'll wait. Is it possible to get too much water? It is possible to get too much water. And since we're talking about adrenal fatigue, let's talk about this. I'll talk about the people with adrenal fatigue in a second. But yes, it is absolutely possible to get too much water. It's called being hypohydrated. And there's a specific word for it where you consume so much water that it dilutes your electrolyte content. What is that? I think I have it written down right here. Ah, yes, that's right. Dilutional hyponatremia. That's when you drink so much that it dilutes the amount of electrolytes and sodium, specifically in your blood. It's definitely possible. So don't force yourself to drink tons of water. Your body is adaptive, so, like, I like to wake up in the morning, and over the last month, I've started drinking 64 ounces of water in the morning. And that's a lot. And if I had just started doing that with no conditioning, I would have given myself dilutional hyponatremia. And I probably would have felt like spacey and shitty. But because I've slowly increased my water intake over the span of like years, realistically, because I have always gotten up in the morning and taken in a lot of water, at least a liter when I wake up. So because I've done that over a long period of time, like, I don't experience those kinds of symptoms. But I also drink water that has been remineralized, so I use the concentrate mineral drops to drip them back in there, add a little bit extra magnesium, and I include salt in my diet, so it's not that big of a deal. Now, for people with, like, adrenal fatigue who have those issues with aldosterone and sodium and potassium balance, you can definitely get hypohydrated really fast, and you can definitely give yourself dilutional hyponatremia. So it's wiser, in my opinion, to sip periodically throughout the day, but I still like my tank up in the morning. It makes me feel good. And my body's used to it now, so it's like it's ready to suck up all that water and use it for whatever it needs to do. The mineral drops that I use are the Concentrace brand mineral drops. Concentrace, I don't know, they're on Amazon, they're at, like, virtually every health food store ever. So, yeah. Yes, that's another good point, backspace, is that bananas aren't even that high in potassium. Like, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, like, Reese's peanut butter cups are higher in potassium than bananas. So. Ugh. 20. Oh, exotic parallel. I feel bad for you with that nutrition professor. I mean, like, the brain can run on ketones, and, like, ketosis has its uses, you know, during, like, starvation or severe illness, but, oh, the ketosis people. Tips for social anxiety. Is it connected to the food that we eat? I would say that there could be a connection. Because, I mean, our food intimately affects our internal landscape in every way. But I would say that in this case, with, like, social anxiety, it's probably more connected to psychological issues that you may be dealing with. There are a lot of different forms of social anxiety, and probably an infinite number of causes that are, like, really specific to people's specific life experiences. So, I don't know how much advice to give other than stop giving a fuck about what anybody else thinks, because in the reality of realities, which lives inside of each and every one of our own heads, is that it doesn't matter, and that you are perfectly capable of living your life without the approval of anyone else, and that their judgments, they can, I don't know, stick it up their own asses. Ooh, that's an interesting question. What would I do if I was diagnosed with cancer right now? I've had this thought before. And I used to, when I was 17 or 16 or 17, probably both, I used to pray every night to a god that I didn't believe in that I would get a brain tumor so that I wouldn't have to take the SATs, because I thought I was going to get a really bad score on the SATs and then everyone would know that I was stupid. So I used to pray that I would get a brain tumor and die, because I thought I was too chicken shit to kill myself, right? Just a little depressing tidbit for all of you to chew on. Side note, I ended up dominating the SATs and got, like, the best score ever, which I quickly dismissed as a fluke, because I couldn't be that smart, right? Anyway, life. If I got cancer, I've had this thought, because I'm like, one day those brain tumor prayers are going to, like, come back. Because the universe loves irony, doesn't it? Like, now that I like being alive, I'll get a brain tumor. Anyway, if I was diagnosed with cancer right now, first of all, it depends on what type of cancer. Okay? So, from what I've learned from, like, researching on cancers, there's treatment seems not to matter all that much. And this is probably the subject of a whole other video that isn't already 95 minutes long, so maybe we can get into this deeper one day. But if you get an aggressive form of cancer, it doesn't seem to matter what treatment you opt for, it's going to take you out. That's just what I've discovered from my own researching on cancer statistics and the history of cancer and all that stuff. So, if I got cancer, it depends on what type it was. Like, I would probably eat a fairly similar diet. I would probably actually do some water fasting, and put myself into ketosis naturally like that, because ketosis is a fairly effective state for, can be a fairly effective state for dealing with cancer. The fasting also triggers a lot of genes and enzymatic pathways that, like, clean up dead or diseased cells. That's probably what I would do. I might do some more green juicing. I don't know. Rest a lot and do my best to enjoy my life, what I have left of it. Because who knows? But it's like, if you get an aggressive form of cancer, some people do go into remission. There's the book Radical Remission, which is really interesting, which I highly suggest everybody read. It's a great book. But I don't know. Like, you can't control all of the environmental factors that are going to affect whether or not you get cancer. Tips on healing psoriasis. When I was first doing the vegan raw food thing and I worked at the health food store, there's this guy who found me through 30 bananas a day, because he was trying to heal his psoriasis, and he had such bad psoriasis and eczema. I think he had both. It was all over his body, and it would, like, literally, it was like he was seeping. And what he found was every single time he would eat, like, super bad junk food, like, I think he worked in a factory where they made savory pies, which are really popular in New Zealand, and they're just horrible. They're, like, the most disgusting food ever. But anyway, he said that he found whenever he ate one of those, it would disappear, and it would get better. And then when he stopped and when he tried to eat healthfully, it would get really, really bad. So for him, his skin issues, the psoriasis and the eczema was, it was like a symptom of detox, and it was a symptom of his body trying to clean itself up. And my advice to him was, like, lots of water, try to eat as clean as possible, like, get it low fat, and sleep every second you can. Like, go to work, make the money that you have to, and when you come home, like, eat and go to sleep. And, like, sleep for 15 or 16 hours if you possibly can, And he was like, shit, okay, I'll try it. And over the next 6 months, like, his skin cleared up. And it was so severe, but it's like he cleared up and he got really healthy skin and he looked fantastic, and, like, his whole life changed. So it's possible. I think we're going to wrap this up soon, or I'm going to lose my voice. cystic acne. I mean, I've dealt with cystic acne since I was a kid. But I assume, Caroline, that you have watched the acne series. And I wouldn't recommend omitting all overt fats because, you know, you do need some, but bringing it down to a certain level. Highly recommend you watch the acne series if you haven't already, because there are definitely answers to a lot of these questions in there, plus a lot more information than I can spew out of my face right now. But I highly doubt that, like, whole fruit and vegetable smoothies could be contributing to the acne. I see that you're eating a lot of brown rice and fruit, but no white rice or table sugar or anything. Sometimes it's a matter of time. Sometimes it's a matter of hormone issues. Sometimes it's a matter of food sensitivities, like gluten will break me out with cystic acne. Sometimes it can be like a lymphatic thing. So like if I'm dealing with a particularly bad cystic acne breakout, I know that going into a sauna several times a week will clear that up, and then the results will last for months and months and months. And that is just because my body isn't as efficient with its liver detoxification pathways as other people's bodies are. So I detoxify more through my skin and my lymph nodes, and I just have to help myself along sometimes. So like good sweat sessions in the sauna can be really helpful for me. Okay. Yes, Caroline has watched it. Nope. Ugh. Sorry, I've been bitten by mosquitoes like 700 times today. Okay. Where can I mail you a book? You can't. I don't have a P.O. box. I have a lot of books. You can tell me which book to get. I can get my own books. You guys don't have to buy me presents. Oh, I'm getting really hot. Okay. I am going to wrap this up. I'm getting quite tired. Adaptogens. What about adaptogens do you have questions about? Oh. Blocked. Bye. If I had to pick 2 or 3 favorite books from the video, which ones would it be? Definitely How Not to Die. I think that's my top 10 favorite. Uh-oh. The Becoming Vegan was really helpful for like specific nutrition information. Proteinaholic was great. I don't think I can pick one. Sorry. Most effective adaptogens. Well, adaptogens are like herbs or other supplements that are apparently more able to, like, you know, it's like you take it and then whatever needs to be done it does, is my understanding of adaptogens, which automatically makes me think like sounds like food. I'm not a big believer in that kind of stuff. So I don't know if you're wondering about like maca powder or like holy basil or what, like pretty much, I don't know. I don't know that I want to get into all of this right now because there are so many like ifs and or buts about this kind of stuff. But I wouldn't rely on them to be like life-changing, and I wouldn't necessarily self-prescribe those because like, I would definitely work with an herbalist if you're going to work with an herbalist, and try to find someone who's not too, like, overzealous and gung-ho, who can tell you about the contraindications and the potential issues with each and every herb that you're thinking about taking. But I've heard that things like adaptogens like ginseng are really effective. I've heard a lot of people talk about maca powder, even though maca can have a profound effect on the hormonal system, which I avoid because I don't want to swing my hormonal pendulum back and forth too much. Would I recommend healthy fats with every meal, or is it better to give your body a break from them? I mean, all foods, most foods, the vast majority of foods contain fats within themselves, you know? So you end up getting small amounts of healthy fats at any meal where you are consuming food. So, I don't see necessarily why your body would need a break from small amounts of healthy fats. It's just like, I'll say it like this. There are times when my body is like, I don't really want anything fatty right now. And I just have like a really light meal with like raw foods, and I just feel great, and that's what my body wanted. And there are times when my body's like, I want to eat an entire avocado all by myself right now. And I do. So, but I mean, I've gotten to a point where my body's a little bit more able to handle different levels of fat intake. But when I was first coming to this diet and I had really bad hypoglycemia, I wasn't able to handle that. So I had to be much more consistent with keeping my fat low. So listen to your body, listen to the experience that your body has from different amounts of fats, but I don't necessarily see any reason why your body would need rest from healthy amounts of healthy fats from whole plant foods. Okay. Lee, I don't know much about rosacea resulting from too high testosterone, so I cannot give you advice on that. I apologize. I wish I could. Okay, one last question, and then we're gonna go. Anissa, chronic fatigue advice. A lot of this video has been specifically about adrenal fatigue and other endocrine issues, so I would just recommend like rewatching this. Okay. Alright, I'm going to end it with Valerie's question about coming off of the oral contraceptive pill and whether or not it's going to cause like huge hormonal imbalances. So, it's different for everyone. Sorry. There is a possibility that you'll have some like big hormonal swings. What could help with that is giving your body lots of whole plant foods that are rich in phytoestrogens. So, like, I found that taking flax seeds every day really, well, not every day, but several times a week really helped to balance out my hormones and get me to a place where like I was a little bit more consistent. I think pretty famously soy foods are high in phytoestrogens, but phytoestrogens are found in most whole plant foods, especially like legumes and whole grains and stuff like that. So eating a nice variety of whole plant foods, I'd say like including a consistent amount of fat in your diet would be good too, because the more fat that you include, the higher your hormone levels will go, and that can contribute to swings in hormone levels. So trying to be consistent with your diet, being consistent with other lifestyle factors, especially your sleep, can be really important. Going to bed nice and early, around 9 or 10 o'clock is ideal, and then sleeping for at least 8 hours is fantastic for your hormonal health. I would definitely recommend that as you transition. If you feel so inclined and you are financially able, I would suggest doing acupuncture. Seeing if you can get in to see an acupuncturist even once or twice a week, if that's something that's available to you. If you can only go like a couple times a month or once a month, that's cool too. And the acupuncturist or another traditional Chinese medicine person can advise you on some herbs to take or herbal formulas that could be helpful. I do like the, ancient Chinese medicine herbal formulas because they have been so tried and tested in these combinations for thousands of years. So I do find them to be quite effective and fairly safe. As far as like taking specific herbs, that's where I feel like we start getting into a little bit more of the possibility that we're taking doses of herbs that could have too much of an imbalancing effect on our hormones. Like I talked about, the chaste tree berry experience that I had earlier was not a positive one. So those would be my suggestions as you come off the pill. Just, your body's going to do its best, and you just try to support your body in doing that. Okay, so I'm at 111 minutes, so I like that with the 111. Maybe I can end this at exactly 111 minutes and 11 seconds. So that said, thank you guys so much for showing up. I don't think I'm going to make it. Anyway, thank you guys. This has been fun. I will see you in 2 weeks, and it'll be great. 11, 11, 11, 11, 11. All the 11s. Okay. Thank you guys for showing up, and for so many of you that have been here the whole time. I see you guys commenting, and I am impressed, and I love it. And I can't wait to do this again. And sorry I haven't posted any videos this week. I've been writing and a little lazy, and it's been fun. Anyway, I will see you guys next week. Until next time, make better choices for yourselves and take really, really good care. I will see you soon. I don't want your insomnia midnight views. Okay. Bye. I love you guys too.